At this moment, he was quickly looking around. The damage itself is quite serious. The tough warriors concentrated in the north of the main battlefield were almost wiped out, and the full-fledged Cinderellas like Hythe, who had knocked down some of the healers due to the bombardment, wanted to recover immediately, but they could not accurately understand the situation in the front line. It's all thanks to Stardust magic, starlight wind, a lot of accumulated dust. The aftertaste of the bombardment made the ears still unable to hear the sound clearly, and even Hadine's position, who was at the rear, disappeared from view. Except for the tattered coat, Hegni showed his power as a first-level adventurer, but at this moment he frowned, understanding exactly Ryu's true meaning. This is not a concentrated artillery fire aimed only at me, but an annihilating shot that extends the range to the limit. Disperses others and removes redundant obstacles. In other words, now, standing there are only two people. Here, the conditions for head-to-head were met. Let's decide the outcome. Ryu broke through the rising dust in a large area, led the red flame and approached the top of his head. Hogni raised his head, his eyes widened furiously, with an expression worthy of being a war king, and greeted the star sword. Do not underestimate me. The black curse sword and the red flame star sword met again. The surrounding area is still blocked by the grayish-yellow curtain, forming a battlefield of sand and dust. No one can intervene, no one can interfere. The night cemetery, where not even duels are allowed, has long since disappeared. Therefore, the elves in white and black really use all their strength to defeat the enemy in front of them. Respect for the sword. After blocking Ryu's flaming slash, he counterattacked, using his sword to destroy his opponent's temporarily raised gauntlets. His body was bathed in countless fire dust, but Hogni was the only one who couldn't withstand the direct hit from the explosive slash. The surprisingly powerful granted magic is indeed a threat. However, the range and power of the flames were completely overwhelmed in the parallel corner battle. He accurately saw the loopholes in Ryu's current fighting style. Even if you are entangled with a friend's flame, you can never burn my killer warrior. If you don't think carefully, you want to make powerful firepower explode at very close range, and there is often a danger of forcing the caster into a self-destruct situation. Ryu was not able to adjust the strength and effect of firepower at will like Elise. So, the direction Hogni must follow is forward. Advancing with the awareness of being burned by the flames, there is a path of survival that the tough warriors could not traverse. There is indeed a loophole here, and only Hogni, who has one of the best hand-to-hand combat skills in the Família, can enter it. Divide, my sword of suffering amorism. Furthermore, the power of Hogni's cursed sword is still alive. Further forward than the long sword blade, the expanded reach of the slash went beyond the flame petals, and shallowly divided Ryu's shoulder, who was retreating just in time. The invisible blade is like a vacuum sword, even the flame of an explosion cannot stop it. Known as the avant-garde assassin, the killer attribute should not be underestimated. Coupled with Hogni's excellent sword skills, it becomes an impenetrable cutting dance. Twice sublimation, don't be so complacent. Girl, you're still beneath me. The enemy not only achieved the unprecedented, and accurately grabbed his own container. Not at the mercy of dramatically improved capabilities. I don't know what she did before coming here, but it's really commendable. But despite this, this level still cannot subvert Hogni's combat skills and combat experience. The first-level adventurers of other factions are different from the first-level adventurers of Família. The skills and strategies, polished to the extreme, the awareness of not fearing death and loyalty to the goddess transformed them into warriors worthy of the name of heroes. It's what it takes to cross the baptism, win the battle within the distribution and rise to the top of the warrior. Even though the apostles of justice support Ryu, with self-transformation magic, there is no reason for Hogni, who summoned his strongest self, to lose. Should be like this. He boldly stepped forward and continued to attack. Forcibly inflicts wounds on the enemy's cheeks and arms. However, Hogni, he is being pushed back. He hit the black sword strike. Flame petals that burn intensely. Gradually, literally, there was a threat to Hogni. What? The enemy's movements became faster. It was Hogni's reaction speed that was dropping. The physical body gradually cannot keep up with the movements represented in the mind. This is a war game. Sora's students declared. Seeing that Hogni was shaken by the change in his body, Ryu also took a step forward and said at the same time, "Compatriot, how many adventurers did you cut with that sword before fighting me?" The moment he heard those words, an extremely strong shock spread through Hogni's body. It could be Dash. The 5 fingers holding the cursed sword shook like spasms. The dust gradually dissipated. The grayish-yellow curtain gradually dissipated. While resisting Ryu's attack, Hogni looked around. Hugging Cassandra's thighs tightly, and still sleeping Daphne and several others lying on the floor. It's the combat that this guy did, Hogni. The cursed weapon will give powerful benefits, but correspondingly, there will also be a price. The weapon exerts the killing attribute of expanding the cutting range, but the price is that it will gradually take away the user's physical strength. This is the same as the scar caused by the curse, which cannot be completely healed immediately, not even by medicine or healing magic, and belongs to the curse itself. Hogni unwittingly overused this cursed weapon. Facing the unprecedented army of high-level adventurers of the faction alliance. Facing Daphne and the others, these rabble who challenged him without a plan. Those who fought with you before me weakened your strength. Hearing Ryu's announcement along with the punch, Hogni's pupils shook from shaking. Let him cut. Uka, Chikusa, Bors, and the residents of the Labyrinth City obeyed this order. And Daphne herself, who gave the order, forcibly pulled as many of her blows from Hogni as possible. The adventurers pretended to be prey waiting to be hunted and consumed Hogni's number of blows. Little Daphne. Cassandra, who was still sitting on the ground watching the fierce battle between Ryu and the others, shed tears and hugged Daphne's injured body tightly. That's why she issued the worst order like a tyrant. It was not to delay the first-level adventurer's combat power and buy time, but to weaken Hogni's strength as much as possible and entrust it to his companions. Daphne and the others willingly fell into hell and endured the cutting. How is it possible? The average Hogni wouldn't do stupid things like abusing cursed weapon. But since the fierce battle with Tsubaki, he was the only one in Freya's family who fought the most against the main force of the faction alliance, so he unconsciously became irritated. The sheer threat of the Swords of Kratso, pushing the blacksmith LV-5 to LV-6 with the light of sublimation, as well as Daphne and her right-wing team, who were too tenacious in their dying struggles. As long as something goes wrong, it will be hurt. It is precisely because he personally felt the potential of the faction and coalition forces that Hogni did not realize that he became very active and eager to annihilate. Connected. Everything fits. After the strategy, Vice Commander Daphne, Tsubaki and the others fought to the end, and the will to win of the family members who fought miserably, all connected at this moment. If this is a pure one-on-one, the outcome may not be known yet. The high-speed flash swayed. The long sword finally jumped out of the hand that lost control, and time stopped for Hogni. However, now is our victory. With this scream, a thud. The tip of the sword pressed against Hogni's chest. The red flame attached to his right hand and the star's sword increased to the limit. Ryu shouted the name, "Definitely kill," with enormous magical power. And it exploded. His body was burned, shattered, flying, trapped by gravity, with his back facing the rubble of the ruins. Smoke rose from the branches. The combat suit burned and fell. His bangs covered his unconscious eyes. A void was carved out of the battlefield. The fall of the first-level adventurer. The drop of LV-6. This is a crack created by the strongest fortress that would never happen in the first place. Everyone froze in place, unable to make a sound, and stopped moving. The next moment. To destroy. Black Demon Sword destroy.